happening? There we go. All right.
And welcome to Uncarcerated. I'm Lee Scott.
I'm Kevin.
Kevin Squat.
That's it.
That's how we we kick off the show. It's so professional. We're just now learning how to edit. So like you'll see all the stuff where like I'm running to plug something in or Kevin's hitting start on the show. Real professional deal here.
Yeah.
Welcome to Uncarcerated. These are all the books that we've read today. If you're just joining us for the first time, this show takes deep dives into the world of the criminal justice system, prison reform, but really focuses on people's personal journey and their narrative. And that's what the point is. You know, when we got done recording last week, we talked to Julius, unbelievable show. And, you know, Kevin and I are focused a lot of times on how do we make the show look better, sound better, promote it. How do we get these stories out to as many people? But when the show was over last week, I was like, you know, if it was just you and I talking to the guest each week and nobody ever saw it, I still would be just as excited. Totally. Because the idea that people get to sort of recapture their story, that it's a cathartic space, a healing space for people, telling stories that have purposefully been stifled all these years by the courtrooms that only read the list of your mistakes. Your families, your friends, a lot of people have never heard these stories. They've never heard the behind the scenes of the injustice that goes on in the courtrooms, in police departments, through prison itself, and then the experience coming home, which also is pretty unjust and traumatizing. So if it was just that, if this show never went anywhere, and likely will not, I would be just as excited.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, even kind of like what you're saying, even if it was only in the sense of like putting together a small archive of people's stories, it's still worth it. Like people's lives are so complicated and nuanced and subtle and textured. And so like everyone has their own unique lived experience, which is amazing to hear. Also amazing to hear some of the commonality as we have had more and more conversations. Certain themes definitely come up a lot, which is pretty interesting, and probably we'll continue to hear some of those themes. But yeah, it's a privilege to be able to talk to people and kind of like you're saying, illuminate stories that typically stay underground kind of by design. It's in the interest of the system to have things kept in a sort of a subterranean level. And so to sort of unearth these stories, and to the credit of the people sharing their stories, it's very brave. It's a very vulnerable thing to do. It's definitely an honor to be just even in the room with those conversations. So,
yeah, I mean,
cool.
I think privilege is the exact word. That I feel very privileged to get to listen to these stories and to get to, I mean, we basically are like driving the bus and we're just kind of like, you know, we're archaeologists, we're digging these stories up, you know, and we get to be in the room while they're happening, but it's the guest who is the star of the show. And I'm super excited. And, you know, sometimes it's people that we know well. Sometimes it's people that we're getting to know, and other times it's people that we want to know. And I think that is a great intro for our guest today. Our guest today is an advocate for people experiencing homelessness and poverty and coming out of institutions. I've watched him firsthand deal with very difficult situations with a temperament that I could only aspire to have. Just keeps his heart rate so low and keeps everything. He's just as has the same temperament, whether something is frustrating and dangerous as when it's joyful and hopeful. And you know, we cross over on shifts where we work, but we haven't hung out outside of work. And you know, I don't know him very well, but it's somebody I want to know.
Yeah, I feel I feel like this is somebody I'm supposed to know better,
right?
And I want to know better. I think we've only worked together like 2 times tops, maybe just once, like actually in like close proximity. And I remember being like, man, like I really want to spend more time with this person. I feel like there's such
that's crazy because he said the opposite about you.
He's a fucking smart guy.
Right.
And I think this is true. Last week, I think motherfucker climbed a fence and saved somebody's life.
Oh, wait, I can't wait to hear
I think
this.
it's actually true. Anyway,
So without further ado, Lionel Santos Robles. I hope I pronounced that right.
you fucked it up.
Yeah, I fucked it up already.
You pronounced it right.
I did. Lionel, hopefully his camera works with us and not against us here. But Lionel's going to join us today. Hey,
What's up?
hey, buddy. Did I
Hey, guys.
leave any of your accolades out?
Yeah, they called me Switchblade on the weekend.
I would like to go by my nickname,
Yeah.
Tiger Hawk.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So we are both excited, and I talked to Abigail before we came up here, who also works with us, and I said I'm interviewing Lionel today, and she just beamed, and she was like, "Tell him I said hello. I can't wait to hear the show because I would also like to know Lionel better." So you seem to have that effect on people, that people want to know you, which is the opposite of Kevin and I, which people know very well and don't want to.
I wish I knew less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the place to start is just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of where you grew up, and what your home life, family life, neighborhood life, what it was like being Lionel.
So I was an adopted child from birth. There was 5 of us. My mom, there were 7 of us. Excuse me, I just lied. There were 7 of us. My mom got 6 of us, and in New York, you could only have a certain amount of kids, so she had to give one of us up. There's 2 I've never met, and I have a total of 12 siblings.
Holy shit.
I was born in New York, raised in Florida. I lived in a semi-poor neighborhood, but it was a cool neighborhood. We ran the streets and played sports and stuff like that. It only got dangerous when I got older, you know what I mean? And I moved out by then. Played sports, a lot of sports. Still trying to dunk on you, Lee.
Never happened.
Started doing bad in school. A million reasons why I could say I was troubled, but a million reasons why I could tell you I wasn't. My dad was like a hardworking man, went to work every week, worked outside on the weekends. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I couldn't really tell you why I was troubled. Maybe because I'd never met my parents at the time, so I was still like questioning what the hell was going on. My mom used to tell me when I was a kid, when we were in school, like, if anybody asks you why you're a different skin tone, just tell them you were left in the oven too long. That used to get a rise out of people. It's like, no, you weren't. You know what I mean? Your mom's full-blooded Puerto Rican, bro. You're a black kid. You know what I mean? So I got a little haze for that. I was in the ROTC in the 9th grade. Started doing really bad then. I got expelled for smoking in school. I was experimenting with drugs, weed in particular. They were definitely very harsh with me because they expelled me. They sent me to alternative school where my life of crime started. I was trying to make some extra money. When I got into alternative school, my dad like cut off my allowance. It was over with. I wasn't getting any cash. I was young, didn't need money, but was looking for it. I had a close friend. His dad was ATF. He was like selling me his guns at school. One day he got pissed off at me. I forget what the hell we were arguing about. Something like trivial. And he had given me one of his dad's handguns. And after he gave it to me, he called the police. They ran the camera back on the bus. I got expelled from all schools in Florida. My mom actually had to get a lawyer to get me to go back to school. When I went back to school, I got my GED in like 3 months. I did it real quick. After I took my GED, I took my ASVAB. After I took my ASVAB, 2 days later is when I caught my prison sentence, that's when I was charged with my crime. Right around that time, I was smoking heavily. Drugs affect everybody differently. Weed was like crack to me. I would do anything to have it. I was young, dumb. I had a temper. I didn't understand why everything was always the harshest with me. I never got a chance in anything. So I always felt like my penalties were the worst. I was smoking. right up to, I took my ASVAB that 2 days after I got my diploma. I remember we were having a little celebration. The next day, at the time, I was like selling weed to smoke it. So it wasn't always working out. I didn't have a car, so I was like struggling a little. But I had money. I went to go buy from one of my friends. And at the time, I was living like a child in my area. I had a handgun. I was going to buy from him. My buddy tried to rob me. I robbed him back. I was just a little quicker than him. I was with my two friends. Whenever the exchange was done or whatever, he got in his car, he drove down the road, he started shooting at me. It was a whole ordeal, but he called the cops. So when he called the police, they did their investigation. Yep, they locked me up. I remember it was so crazy. I was in the county jail and I was asking my lawyer, I was like, how could someone trying to rob you call the police and tell them that you got the upper hand and robbed them and you wanted them in jail? And my attorney didn't have any answer for me. I'm like, what? It's crazy, but it is what it is. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing at the time. So it's like, okay, I got screwed here, but I didn't get caught here, but I felt like they over sentenced me. When I got locked up, I learned my sentence. I learned my lesson like the first 3 weeks. I was like, oh yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. My recruiter, I scored a 74 on my ASVAB. My recruiter came and spoke on two of my appearances. Just asked the judge if he could speak. He spoke with the state attorney. He was trying to get me like 3 years in the Army unpaid and some probation or something like that. The judge was not having it at all whatsoever. My victims on my case, the two guys that obviously were trying to rob me, they stopped coming in depositions. They wouldn't drop my case. My attorneys were saying that my co-defendants were telling on me, like most people do in a situation where it's life or death, Forget the bravado that everybody says, because that's not true. Nobody's gonna keep their mouth closed, when it comes to their life. So I got sentenced. I got sentenced 7 years with 3 mandatory.
Yeah, they say snitches get stitches, but it's snitches get less time, really.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Snitches get the sweet jobs in prison.
Yeah, absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Yeah.
Or just go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I started my sentence, which now looking back was way, way too much time. I was sentenced with initially robbery with a firearm, aggravated assault with a firearm, with no intent to kill. When I went up the road, they switch your paperwork. I ended up just having robbery with a firearm. I could tell you a handful of people who were there for like 2-3 years. I could tell you a handful of people who had the same charge that were there for 20 years. But the guys that were there for 20 years were like kicking people's doors in, beating them up in the house. You know what I mean? I felt like I was way over sentenced. But I used the time to refine myself. It was disgusting in some places. It was clean in other places. It was a joke. It was the biggest joke in the world. 95% of people I seen in prison had a drug habit or addiction and needed some type of recovery. And it's the worst place to try to stop doing drugs, where they're still doing drugs.
Yeah.
It's there.
I want to back up a little bit before we get into that part of it, because there's a lot of questions I have, but it sounds to me like you were doing what a lot of people probably were doing. I could name 15 or 20 people that I know when they were 16, 17, 18 years old that were running around buying and selling weed, and didn't end up in prison. And so
like everyone I knew.
Yes, and I think Kevin and I both, like, I can definitely relate to the being over sentenced. My first felony, first time in trouble, stealing my own car, I end up getting the max. Like, it was ridiculous. But I want to talk maybe a little bit about sort of like the mentality that got you there as these things were occurring. You talked about being adopted, and then ROTC was kind of where you started, seeing some of the trouble, and then school. Did you feel like at any point like not a sense of community or a sense of belonging, or maybe like fish out of water? Like what were the feelings that you were having that were like kind of going against the grain?
Yeah, I was definitely coming into that spot where I was feeling like, it sounds silly when you say it, but like a feeling and emotion of nobody's caring, nobody's paying attention. It's serious. I definitely felt that, and I definitely felt like I was getting closer to the edge of doing something worse, because like I was like coming into the world, like my parents, up until a certain age, we were sheltered, until we were dumped out for getting in trouble. And yeah, I definitely felt like I was getting closer to the edge of, getting in trouble. I definitely felt like no one was trying to help. And in my situation, in the place that I was, I felt like there would be some type of program, where I could jump in, get a job, or have some type of, if I had those things at that time, I think it would have made a huge, huge difference. But
well, you're a really bright guy, and you work in the social work field now. What types of structures could be in place other than juvie and jail and prison? What kind of like restorative justice or not punitive justice stuff could be in place? Like, what do you envision that isn't out there? Like, I'm sure like, Skylar and Brad have that opportunity, to go to, we all know Skylar's going to rehab.
Exactly.
I just want to like, what could be those things that are in place? You don't need to solve the world's problems on the show, but like, I just, what would you have liked to have seen that could have been helpful at that time?
I feel like, to be honest with you, I feel like if structures like rehabs or prisons, or even mentoring programs where you can't leave and you have to stay and be accountable, were ran by people like me and you or Kevin, I think it would do a 360 on results for inmates, because you're in prison and yeah, they have modality. Yeah, they have re-entry. But what are those things? Those are places inmates have to sit so they don't go to the box for getting in trouble for not listening to officer. If there was a place where we could implement those things, make people more accountable, and have people like us, which is at the end of the day key. It doesn't matter about the structure. It matters about who's delivering the message. I think that would make a world of difference. I caught on by myself. There's so many people that got out around the time that I've been out that are back their second, third time, just because they never got any help. My buddy suffers from an alcohol problem. I'm not going to name him. And that's his only downfall. He gets drunk and he does something stupid. Gets drunk and he'll break into his mom's car and go to sleep. You know what I mean? Or he'll drive down the road drunk. He needs treatment. He doesn't need to be locked up in a cage, because that's not doing anything but trying to get it to where he comes back. And I feel like that structure is built like that.
Kevin and I just talked to someone who was talking about opening up, like a halfway house type place, and the lack of that in Florida. And as we were having this conversation, I mean, that's something that ultimately I would like to do. And as we were having this conversation, I was like, up north, they have halfway houses and sober living facilities everywhere. And like in the courtrooms, you see people get 8, 9, 10, 11 chances before they even see county jail, and definitely before prison. They'll go to a sober living facility and they'll come back in front of the judge with a dirty urine screen, and he'll send them right back. And they're a little bit more understanding because they have the structures in place. But so what, Florida doesn't have any of that kind of stuff. But the problem that I saw was sober livings and halfway houses and rehabs are run by either former addicts who cannot articulate a holistic message, or articulate one type of message. It's 12 steps and that's it, right? That's the message. Or they are run by people who are fresh out of college that got their social work degree, and they've never had that experience. So it seems like you're exactly right. There's a huge gap with people that know how to articulate the message that have had that experience.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the worst thing to do, is put a college student or somebody in, because they're going to be by the book. They don't know how to be flexible. They don't know how to read people and their responses, or think for people, because that's such a big thing, and it's an understatement. You have to think for people, because some people can't think on them, and that's serious.
Yeah, I mean, you even said like you have like a really clear idea of like what would have been helpful for you,
Yeah.
like what you actually needed. And I'm sure at no point did anyone go, hey, why don't we ask this guy what he actually needs? And like I mean, and absolutely, like that is the thing, like in our conversation with that person talking about the reentry, the transitional housing, time and again, we're like, you have got to center the experience and the voices of people who have been through it. There is no one who is a better expert in their own lives than the person themselves. So like, you know what you needed, and it's abundantly clear you didn't actually get what you needed. You didn't get what you wanted or what you needed. You even said like 3 weeks into it, like you were done. At that point, like you should have been fucking released. So like maybe just for like anyone who's listening to your story, thank you for sharing all this, by the way. Like what did you get instead? I know like you were in the county jail for a time. You went through some sort of reception center. You ended up going to a Florida prison. Yeah. Can you talk about like maybe the inverse of what you actually needed, and talk about what you actually got instead? Like what were the conditions? Where were the gaps? What was the meal served to you for your time?
So yeah. Before I go into that, I want to state this on your guys' show. When in the midst of my case, when I caught my time, the piece of evidence that was holding me to the crime scene was a cigarette butt. This isn't like a conspiracy theory thing. This is true. When whatever happened, I wasn't smoking. I was trying to get what I was doing and go back to the house. When I got home and they searched my house, I had my ashtray on the table. They took my cigarette butt. That's how they linked me to the crime. So I got screwed there. Yep. When I went to prison versus what I should have got, I felt like they should have let me go to the military. I was already headed there. I already took my ASVAB. It was a small crime in between friends. It wasn't like I just ran up to somebody and pulled their wallet out. And I felt like that would have gave my life a 360. I ended up going to college after the military, maybe playing some sports in the military. Who knows?
I mean, clearly willing to shoot at someone. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's them, not us. Versus what I got though, my whole entry into prison was terrible. When I got off the bus, they violate you first quarter. I wasn't used to that. I was used to, I've never been in that situation before. So I thought it was going to be like going to jail and having to strip down. And no, they want you to sit on a bench and spread yourself. I wasn't doing it. I was young. I had a temper. So I told them I wasn't doing it. They pulled me to the side. They searched everybody. They said, so you're not doing it. In their country, prison was, and they whooped my ass, bro. They whooped me so bad. They kicked my ass. I went to K building. I was in there. My first tray was a blank tray. For people who don't know what that is, they put your tray in a slot and there's no food on it. When I was released from K block, they let me out in like a week. When I was released from K block, I went straight to I block.
Oh no!
I wasn't supposed to be in I block. I was
red hat.
Yeah, I think I was, fucking them ugly ass red hats with a patchy haircut from the guy who's not trying to cut your hair, what I mean? So I was in I block, and everybody was like, first nobody was asking why the fuck I was there. It's turn up central. You got to fight there every night. They put your name in the hat. The first like 3 nights they didn't call my name. The fourth night the dude walked by me with the hat and I just took off on him. That's how you have to do in there, or you're gonna be like one of those dudes with a fucking belt tied around your neck, walking around the fucking cell and shit. So
hey, I just want to explain for the viewer that maybe doesn't understand what we're talking about here. Lake Butler is the oldest reception center in the state of Florida. It's it's where they herd everyone through. They strip you down, make you get naked, and then they are supposed to send you off to the dorm, and then the prison that you were classified for. They're not doing that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're just pulling a name out of a hat and they're sending you wherever. So K block is like the box. And then I block is for youth offenders, YOs, which in Florida, we call them JITs.
Yeah.
So you end up in I block. These are all kids that are between 18 and 21 years old. A lot of times it's their first time in trouble. You have a brain that's not even fully developed yet. And then you've got guards that are waging on these kids, beating the shit out of each other. They're actually the people that are employed by the state of Florida with taxpayer dollars are betting on which one of these kids is gonna fight each other. And that's what your experience was.
Yes. I remember one time I was trying to go to canteen. We were on lockdown because we were acting an ass as usual. There's no TV in I block. At the time when I was there, they were giving us one roll of toilet paper per wing. So it was a fight over the toilet paper at all times. The guy was in the cell with, his name was Ghost. And I've been asking to go to a canteen for like 3 weeks. I just wanted to get necessities. I wasn't trying to go fill my bag, and because that's a stupid idea in I block. You just don't do that, even if you're friends with everybody. So I'm trying, and I think, I can't remember the guard's name. I asked him to go. He said, if you want to go that bad, you got to fight your monkey. So me and this dude I've been with for maybe a month, you know what I mean? Eating with, we ended up crashing in there. We crashed out. We were friends afterwards, but it was crazy. I felt bad the whole time. It was inhumane. That was the worst. That was the nastiest prison I've been to as far as guards and living conditions. There's birds in the dorm. They just fly in. They'll shit on your bed. They shit on there's rats everywhere. It was nasty.
Roaches in the chow hall.
Yeah.
Crawling out of that big old tray of bread. There's roaches on it.
Yep. And don't kill the rats. Fucking sometimes that's somebody's pet, man. You can't do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you're looking at like,
tell whose pet that is. Yep.
That experience that you had there at Lake Butler, would you describe that as helpful? Or
for most, no. For me, yes. I mean,
it was helpful.
It was not helpful at all. There's no rational man that could get in that and get anything good out of that besides learning how to fight. And it teaches you how to fight, but it taught me how I don't want to fight anymore. And it's not okay to just put your hands on people. Just because you can doesn't mean it's okay. And, people they have no regard to your physical health. I remember they beat this one dude up so bad. It's like eye socket was busted. He ended up having to have reconstructive surgery. And the next day they pulled his name out of the hat again. He had to fight again. And it wasn't a fight. It was a massacre. It was nasty.
Thank you for sharing this, by the way. I think most people don't realize what's really going on there. And so thank you. I mean, this is it's brutal and traumatizing, obviously, to even hear that they're forcing people, and I've talked about the toilet paper fights before too. That's a real fucking thing. That's actually happening. And so thank you for sharing. This is not easy to
no, it's not easy to talk about or hear. I want to before we get out of iDorm for a second.
Not fast enough.
It's like my heart's racing. Just
Listen,
just so you know, when they sent me to ACI, right? And when I get there, there's 24 of us. We get off the bus, they do the whole thing, naked, strip search, everything. And then they put us in this room and they're start doing dorm assignments. And they're in dorm, our dorm, in dorm. So everybody's in dorm except for me, I'm our dorm. And I look at the guy next to me and I'm like, hey man, what's our dorm? And he goes, oh man, that's the JIT dorm. You don't want to be in there. And I'm 33 years old, right? And I go to the classification lady. They called her truck driver. She was this big old lady, right? Big old redneck lady. And I go, hey, yeah, I'm not supposed to be in the JIT dorm. She goes, honey, this is prison. Ain't nobody supposed to be here.
Yeah.
That's it. So they sent me over there to the JIT dorm for a week before they figured out I wasn't supposed to be in there. They had them all on lockdown because I guess they had tried to light each other on fire one night. And so they had I shit you not, they had a squirrel in there that they had trained as a runner. So they would tie stuff around the squirrel's neck and it would run back and forth between the dorms and like get cigarettes and snacks and shit. So, for the person who isn't like understanding and compassionate, like for the redneck that happens to be watching our Uncarcerated right now, who is, I'm not going to mince words, the person who is out there that is a DOC person, that's a hard line. We need more law and order, more prisons, more cops. To that person who says, well, you did the crime, do the time. Can you speak to that for a second? Like the brutality to put someone through this experience whose brain isn't fully developed yet.
It's not helping.
Right.
Yeah, you're not helping.
Not at all. They don't understand. They can't fathom the area they're sitting. They see prison movies and they're like, oh yeah, that's it's not that. It's that and much more worse. There's people overdosing, there's people gooking out, which is smoking tunchi. I don't know if you guys have talked about that on this show. There's guards that just put you in a room and just beat the shit out of you because they just want to beat you up. You know what I mean? They keep you on lockdown for nothing. No, that is the dumbest thing that someone can say in the world. You did the crime, you did the time, because there's no such thing as a victim. Everybody's done something in their life to where they could have got some type of repercussion on our guidelines of crimes. You know what I mean? Talking to a girl, speeding down the highway too much. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that someone would think that's okay. I think people get to a point in their life where, oh, I'm done doing bad now. But they're still doing bad. They need to get in trouble for it. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of, it's stupid. It's dumb as hell.
I thought, like, I had this feeling when I was sitting on my bunk, and I don't know if you guys like had this idea came to me that like prison is like triple and quadruple punishment. So what the court and the judge is saying is, you fucked up. You can't be around other people for a little while. Your family is going to get punished for this. You can't work. You can't pay any fines you owe. There's no restorative justice. You just can't be around other people. So I'm going to put you in this cage, right? But then when you're there, you get beaten up. You get beaten up by the guards. You get barely fed. You don't get nutrition. It's punishment on top of punishment on top of punishment. When does it end? You know, it's one thing to put me in a cage and go, I'll see you in a couple years. It's another thing to beat the shit out of me when I get there.
It's modern day slavery. That's really what it is. And then to top it off, it's funny you said that. It's a great note to kick on. They don't feed you enough. If you're not doing some type of hustle in prison, you're not going to get the right nutrition. You're going to come out skin and bones. And what that's doing is teaching us, in a sense, it teaches you a business sense. Yeah, we hear that, but no, it doesn't. You know what I mean? It's not good, because some people don't get the same messages other people do. You know, we're starving, we're eating, so now we're fucking sliding under people's beds trying to snatch their canteen so we can eat for the next 3 weeks. And if we go to the box, it's all right because we got the canteen when we go there. You know, it's the food's nasty, disgusting.
What you're saying is like starving someone from information, education, nutrition, and teaching them to like what, you know, like you're getting down to your primal instincts, that just carries over when you go home.
Yeah. Yes, it does. It can. And that's where I feel like prison reentry, prison modality, it fails because they're not bringing in people who are equipped to guide you out of that. I had such a problem coming out of prison. My my homegirl was like, "You're institutionalized. You're crazy. You're messed up in the head because of little things that I do." Doors closed behind you in prison. All my doors were open. I left the refrigerator open. You know what I mean? Car door. You know, I'm like, it's gonna close. You know what I mean? And then like going to the gas station and just buying food. I remember I got out. And I was at the store and my buddy had his food stamps card. And before I went to prison, there was no tap to scan, you know? So I'm at the thing and I'm swiping and he's like, no, do it that way. I'm like, this way. So I'm like, he's like, no, you got to do it like this. And instantly I went to, you know what I mean? Cross City. Hey, bro, listen, don't be talking to me like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Got to fight for my respect. Like I'm still in gladiator school. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no, I didn't get, me personally, I was not prepared for my release at all. I was so accustomed to the way I was living in there, because you have to get accustomed to the way you're living there. When I got out, like paying bills and fueling gas and, you know, having a relationship with my family. And it was hard for me when I first got out. When I got out, I had a chip on my shoulder, which wasn't a bad chip, but it was still there lingering from my prison experience. So
How long have you been home, Lionel?
Since July 2021.
Okay.
2020.
So 2 years, basically.
2 years.
Yeah. My EOS day was my daughter's birthday. That was fun.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you leave Lake Butler, what was your process? Where did they send you first?
First I went to the Wild West. Then I was shipped to Cross City, which was awesome when I first got there. But then they started making it, I forget what they call them, when people that like check in or people
like a confidential informant camp, like a CI camp, basically.
Yeah. No, like let's say like you stabbed somebody, you were getting off a CM. They were sending people like that there to the East unit. So it wasn't I block, you know what I mean? But it was still like enough noise to make you stay on your toes. Then I went to the main unit, which was heaven, you know, but not heaven. When I say heaven, I mean there's lifers there. There's people here that have been here for so long. They know how to do their time, not around kids. And then I started working in the barbershop. I got the barbershop job because the lady, the intake lady, the lady you were just saying that you know classifies you or whatever, yeah. She actually knew my aunt. So when I got off the bus, she was out there waiting for me. And I felt like, I'm like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, bro, don't tell people here that we know each other. You know what I'm saying? I was instantly scared, but she's like, listen, I'm not going to have you in the kitchen. Da, 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 da. She put me in a barbershop. It was the scariest time of my life because I didn't know how to cut any type of hair whatsoever.
Hell yeah.
Lifer camp, bro. I was like doing beards, you know what I mean? And I got a couple close calls where dudes were like, bro, if you didn't know how to cut, you should have told me. And I was like, man, I did tell you, you know what I'm saying? But I was in the barbershop and that carried over to Lottie. When I went to Lottie, I was in the barbershop. Lottie was a terrible place. But it was a good place for someone trying to change. If you were focused, if you had your head on straight and you didn't need a guide, which is like very few people, you can like pick up life skills and, you know, sharpen your sword and you can make it at Lottie. Most people didn't though. They were buying scans and, you know, but it worked out for me because that's what I was looking for my whole prison instance. Before I went to Cross City, I went to the PAL program at Lake Butler. It was like a church religious program, but I took that time out to just like read. And that's all I was doing. When I went to Lottie, I did the same thing. I was reading, I was in the barbershop, but they hated me there because Lottie is, in a sense, a snitch camp. You know, people want to stay there because it's so less violent that they'll snitch on each other. And these guys that are telling on you aren't like the best people. You know, yeah. They're telling on you because they're pieces of work.
Could you talk a little bit? You're kind of touching on it there, and like how you kind of took it upon yourself to like read.
Yeah.
And that like the sense I'm getting at least, and that what the prison itself offered, like the modalities weren't really meaningful. There was no substance to it. Could you talk about the difference between what's generated by the individual and the other prisoners versus what the institution itself is offering, and like what is the impact of those things? Like where is the real change happening? Is it happening in what's being offered to you by you know
no the prison is not. I remember doing like re-entry. I didn't do re-entry, but I was like sitting in, or I was reading somebody's re-entry packet, and the packet was like telling you how to fill out a debit card. That's all you're going to teach us, how to fill out a debit card, how to put in information on an application. I mean, there's like so much more things that you need to prepare yourself for.
It's like how to write a check.
Yeah, you know,
information from the early 80s.
Yeah, what am I fucking Amish? Yeah. How to connect your horse to the buggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best teachers in prison are the inmates. I learned the best life lessons, life skills from inmates. What prison's going to give you is a Bible, you know what I mean, and tell you, you better believe, you know what I mean. But you know, as far as like learning stuff, schooling yourself, I mean, that was learned through me and other inmates. Like some guys would order like those type of books, and I'd borrow from them, and you know, yeah, you're not gonna get the adequate learning. I remember they were doing the GD program there, and one of my buddies was like bringing back his classwork every day, and I was like flipping through it because I like to, you know, I'm a nerd. I like to stay sharp. I'm looking and I'm like, bro, you guys are still doing division. You know what I mean? You've been in this class for 4 months and they're just teaching you how to divide. You know what I mean? This is what you want to do for your GD. Yeah, prison's not going to teach you anything. You got to teach yourself. You have to. Yeah.
So I was at Lottie, and it's interesting that there's like 4 people that were at Lottie that all work now where we work. It was like the Lottie trained us to be in the social work field. But when I first got there, Lionel, you're exactly right. They had just switched it over to be a faith and character-based camp, right? And this was Jeb Bush, the governor at the time. This was his big initiative, was I'm going to make a prison that is like where I'm going to take all the tour groups. Like all the donors are going to come to this prison. There won't be a box, right? So even in not having a box, there was inherently a problem, because if you fucked up, they sent you to like Union or somewhere horrible, right? It's like if you made one mistake, I mean anything, like didn't make your bunk the right way, you were going to Rayford. Like I'm going to Florida State Prison where the electric chair is. So people were like willing to do anything, like throw stuff on your bed, you know, any kind of stuff to get out of trouble. But the thing that I noticed that was really the big problem there was that it was only faith-based. There was no character-based stuff. So, and when I say faith-based, I mean, they had both kinds of religions, Southern and Baptist, right? Yeah. So that was it. And so I happened to be there at a really interesting time. There was a doctor, an attorney, a teacher, myself, and like 2 other people. There was like 6 of us, and we were teaching the GED class. And we went to administration and said, we can develop some actual character-based character-based programs. So they let us teach 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yes, they let us teach, we developed this philosophy class. We added like 4 or 5 classes there while I was there. But I did notice that like among the facilitators, there was probably 12 to 15 facilitators, and the faith-based facilitators were the ones that were like going around telling on people. Yeah. Right. Was it like that when you were there?
Yeah. And selling scans. You didn't even have to go to the class. You just give them some coffee, you know what I mean?
Right.
But those classes, it's funny that you say that. Those classes, I was in 7 Habits. I was in, what's the speech where you tell speeches, man? It's been
Toastmasters. So I was the president.
Yep. I did yoga while I was there. Like those classes, I love that stuff. And I soaked up so much. And like just that in a nutshell, if that was like in all prisons, the whole compound would be different, because people would have things to do and somewhere to spend their energy, and it's just not there.
It's what I would like to ultimately see where we work.
Yeah.
You know, I know that like there's a big argument against it, but like ultimately I would like to see that, because what happens when you warehouse people is that a vacuum is created. Whether you like it or not, whether you think this is just a temporary stay, it's not supposed to be a fun place to be, we want you to move on and do something else. Well, a vacuum's created, and in that vacuum, negative stuff happens. So why not fill it with some positive shit, you know?
Man, if we did that at Grace, it would be, we probably maybe, I'm not going to say flip it around, but at least 25% less. You know what I mean? It just give people stuff to do, man. And that's the idle minds, the evil's playground. I'm not even going to say the devil. It's evil's playground. You just sit and you're just like, oh, let me go break into this car, because you don't have anything to do. You know what I mean? You don't have no way to spend your time. There's nothing constructive to do. And I feel like where we work at, that would be a big difference in what we do. But you know, we're just ants. You know,
we're all gonna get fired.
Yeah,
I feel like most people, maybe if people that have never been to prison or don't know and has been there, have the idea that what's being offered to everyone is all this shit all the time, that like it's nothing but classes and betterment, and every prisoner has every opportunity to have a legitimate change of mind and heart, and like this is like, and any failure is solely resting on the shoulders of the prisoner, who is in some way just a fundamentally flawed human being, which is obviously just not the case. Like it's just like the opportunities just don't exist, and what does exist is generated by either the individual or like other prisoners. Like I would like to put together this class on something meaningful, whatever. Like so the fact that like, I don't know, like people come out and struggle, and the public continues to demonize them as if like, man, they had every shot, this motherfucker's just a failure, is just so inaccurate. And so I mean, I think it's so important to hear over and over again, like, hey, believe me, this is not what's happening inside. And in fact, like even though you had like a little contact with some like good programs, kind of like you said, like even when you came out, you struggled, you've had like a hard time with some stuff. Could you talk about now, like, we want to talk about like your work you're doing now, but like some of the lingering effects of your time incarcerated? Does it still show up in your life now? Is there anything that you can point to as like, this is because of that experience?
You still take a shower with your slides on?
I do. Bro, you know how long I did that for? Stop it.
You know what? I'm wearing slides. I never wear slides like out in public, but it's so fucking hot today. And on the way here, I was thinking mandatory slides, not good. Optional slides,
great.
Still not great. Only a little better. Anyway, sorry.
I'm still scared of Crocs.
Fuck Crocs. Yeah.
Struggles from prison. I get fucking flashbacks sometimes. Like somebody swinging a sock full of soap at somebody. I'm like, oh shit, are we back to these days? You know what I mean? But I hate to sound like such a monk, but I went through so much in prison, bro. I sharpened my sword up so much. I didn't struggle, but then I did. When I first got out, it was hard for me. You know, like being around people. I wanted to be alone. You know, think about like when you're in a dorm and you're sitting on the bunk and everybody's at programs and it's just like silence. You know what I mean? I got addicted to it. I'm like at my house, like peeking out my windows. My cousin's knocking on my door trying to play the game. I'm like, no, bro, I don't want to hang out.
Damn, who'd you tell on to get in a dorm?
You know what I mean? Shit, I wish. If I told them, if I would have even went to prison, it'd probably been the smartest thing, bro. Both my co-defendants got fucking probation, bro. Shit sucks, bro. But I do struggle when it comes to confrontation with people. I like on the outside, I'm like, all right, man, good job, good. But in the back of my mind, I'm like twitching. It's hard for me sometimes for like guests. I have to like take a step back. And one thing that I learned that helps a lot, especially working at Grace's Tagging Out, I'll be like, hey, all right, this is you. I've done what I could here. Because you know what I mean? I don't want to put my hands on nobody's kids. That's not a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Really, just anger, man. That's what I've struggled with the most. When I first got out, I got out to some bull crap. The child of my mother was like tormenting my daughter when I was locked up. And then I came out like picking up the pieces. I ended up getting split custody, so that worked in that favor. But you know, she's still a person that does what she wants to do, and you can't control her. I'm clicking back to what you were saying when you were talking about how people were saying people are they demonize us. We're like monsters. But I know at the same time, you used to sit on your bunk and look at people and be like, man, I wonder what this guy would look like if he had an opportunity. And that's just it at the end of the day. Everybody that's there, everybody that's homeless, they're regular people. They just took a different path, you know, and with the right steps or the right help, or you know, even $1 million could change somebody and like put them in a structure and they'd blend right in. You wouldn't know the difference. And the demonizing thing, it's ridiculous, man. It's just people not trying to be accountable for things they've done in their past, so they're trying to like whoop you for it. You know what I mean? Old slave master thing. We're all slaves now, so
yeah.
What's up, guys? Man, it sucks.
I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to talk about like that idea. One of the big things, you know, Kevin mentioned it earlier, when we follow the data points for the people who've had success on their way home and the people who have already gone back. And we've had a couple people on the show that are back now, unfortunately, and it's sad. And obviously drugs and alcohol are involved. But I see relationships as a big one because of the control thing, either a lack of friendships and a lack of a healthy community, a lack of healthy activities, lack of a healthy relationship. You know, you're tied to your child's mother or an ex, or where you have to go home and live is less than ideal. And that like lack of healthy community or unhealthy relationships often gets people right back where they started. And lack of control, you know, like I can't control my surroundings. You know how important it is to make your little bunk area your little area, and how important that is. Like the biggest thing that I did for myself when I came home was live by myself. I had opportunities to go stay with other people. I would have chosen to be by myself in a less than ideal situation, like, you know, a sober living facility, than living with somebody else, because I wanted to control my little area. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I want you to talk about that a little bit, about what you've seen with the people that have had success and with those that haven't, and where that's maybe come up with you, where you're like, oh, I've got to control this situation. I've got, you know, or that I want this relationship to be healthy and it's just not.
Yeah. I've seen many people from work release to when I was in prison that didn't have the opportunity to get that, you know, get out and be by themselves, get out and get a car or a job. And they get funneled right through. I'm in a handful of people. I have a list full of contacts of people that were texting me every day that I don't get texts from anymore, you know, because they just, you know, my buddy, he was arguing with this girl. She was cheating on him while he was locked up. He went out into that, you know. Another one of my friends just didn't have a job, and, you know, he just went back to trying to do anything to pay his child support. You know what I'm saying? And then even some people that do get out and they get their own place and they get their own spot and they're working, it's hard for them too. You still have to deal with that mental scar that's on your brain that inmates don't talk about. You know, when I have prison dreams, bro, I get up and my whole day is ruined. You know, just thinking about everybody that you know in there. You know what I mean? That's still there. You know, it's hard. And yeah, coming out with nothing, and like the stuff you do, Kev, that's big. That's like a game changer for so many people, because just a little bit of money to get on their feet, to move forward. That's what like 60% of people that are going back needed. You know what I mean? That it's just not here. It's not anywhere. When I got out, it was what you had when you left work release, and even that's not enough, because they're taking 95% of it from you before you even get out the door. You know what I mean?
It's a crazy fucking world. Yeah.
Robbing you before you get out of prison for what you didn't make.
So I know, I want to talk a little bit about, if you would, maybe some happier things, maybe they're happier, but like just knowing a little bit about you and like what you're doing now, the fact that you're like, you have taken it upon yourself to work in a position where you're giving back to your community, you're being like supportive, you're engaged in like very meaningful social work, you're a very positive presence, despite what might be grinding in the back of your mind. Your outward appearance is very like calm and like comforting, and you know, maybe talk a little bit about that and like kind of how you came into that role, and like you know, what that's like for you to work on the grounds of a former prison as well, which is, you know, shouldn't be discounted.
Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say about that.
And then talk, you know, when you're not leaping fences and saving lives, you know, kind of what else do you have going on in your life that you're like pursuing, and like, you know, like what other passions do you have? I
like making music. This is my board right here.
Yes.
I like making music. I love playing sports. I play sports when I'm at work. When I take my 30-minute break, I'm out there shooting around. And my daughter, she's like a stress reliever to me. I can't credit her enough for, you know, the amount of pressure she takes on, because I have to focus on her and like, hey, listen, this is how it's supposed to be. Working at a former prison is when I first got there, I was tripping out. I was calling everybody, yo, bro, look at this.
Yeah.
They're like, yo, you're sorry.
I'm in the chow hall.
Yeah, I'm like, look at my office. It used to be a CO's office.
But I like it too to an extent, because you can be in that environment, see how people are living in condition, and actually treat them how they were supposed to be treated, opposed to, you know what I mean, how we were treated. It was hard when I first started, but it's cool. I love it, man. I like working there. It can definitely be challenging sometimes, like waking up Alejandro from. Probably not supposed to say people's names out here. But you know, it's not always that. Sometimes it's boring, and it's like the little things, like, you know, clothes and, you know, and all that stuff is important. And I like being in that position, not just because I can do that for people, but to watch other people come to where we work at and implement that in their mind, because we work with college students too, and we work with people that are dropping the hammer on people for no reason, and you have to be able to, like, you know, it's I feel like I have to be there sometimes, you know what I mean? Because you have to guide some people. I can't tell you how many times I've sat with somebody like, oh, well, let's ROS him. Just last week, let's ROS him. I'm like, well, what was it about? It was domestic dispute between him and his girlfriend, and they're like holding hands right now, right? You know what I mean? It's like, there has to be a line to draw. But I definitely take a lot from it. I spend a lot of time also, like, when I'm not making music, when I'm not with my daughter, I like to travel. I like to just go out and see shit. I've always, like, when I was on my bunk, I was always like, man, I've never been anywhere besides Puerto Rico. And, you know, that shit sucks. You know what I mean? So, like, going to places, seeing new stuff. I went to California last year. That was awesome. Yeah, that's it. Really.
As we wrap up here, I just wanted to see what you, the sort of emotional part of the work that we do. I facilitated when I was in prison, and when I came home the first time, after about a year and a half, I had a huge void, a huge emptiness, and I repeated mistakes all over again. And looking back, it was because I came home, I was somebody, and I came home and I was nobody. And I wasn't teaching, I wasn't helping, I wasn't giving back, I wasn't doing anything. And I find this, like, really long sustained period of success in my life is largely because I've been involved with community or this show or, you know, charity work of some sort, and now working where I work. I want to see, like, how that manifests for you, like going to work every day, feeling needed and necessary and helpful in people's lives. Like, is that something that is foundational for you now?
Yes, it definitely is. It's definitely a remedy. I can honestly tell you, before I started coming to work at Grace, I was in, like, a downward depression spiral. You know what I mean? I was starting to go back to, like, okay, I needed something to calm me. You know what I mean? To, like, where it was getting to the point where I was, like, drinking, blacking out. You know what I mean? And I didn't know. I mean, I do know why now, but at the time I was just like, oh man, I've been working all day. I just need a stress reliever. You know what I'm saying? Hanging out with people, you know, it's hard, man. Especially, and another thing is, like, most people come out and they go to a construction job, and that's like getting out and living at Grace, because everybody at the construction site is doing something extracurricular. You know what I'm saying? But being at Grace, and yeah, it definitely gives you, like, a fulfillment thing that you don't notice. You don't notice it. You know what I mean? But, like, when you speak on it, like, yeah, when I was working construction, it sucked, bro. I was the barber in prison. I had all the food. I'm out here with Jorge, and, you know what I mean? He's got 40 grand in his pocket he made last week from side jobs. You know what I mean? And I'm struggling with the $600 I've got to stretch it out and pay gas and stuff like that. Yeah, it's definitely an adjustment.
Awesome, man.
Dude, thank you so much for sharing. Like, you know, you're a really special person, and, you know, like, you've been through these circumstances, and obviously it's not who you were, and it hasn't, like, become who you are. You shine wherever you are. And I just feel really privileged that you're able to spend this time with us too. So
yeah, this is awesome. I'm so happy I got to hear, like, more of your story, and you're so good at telling it, about being just, like, authentically, like, hey, this is what the fuck is happening. Like, it's, like, really good.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, like you don't mince the words. Like, it's, and I will say, like I said a few minutes ago, like, despite whatever's, like, you know, the grinding, you know, like the anger and all that stuff, which is totally natural. Like your demeanor is one of like it's very like soothing and calming. It actually has like a really a big impact on the people around you, maybe in ways you don't even realize. So
I can honestly tell you, I don't know why that is.
hey,
It's like, Lionel, you're so nice. I'm like, thank you. I guess.
that's a good thing. No,
It's probably from growing up in a big family.
Yeah.
that was great, man. No, thank you for sharing all this, man. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for all your work you're doing now.
Yep. Appreciate y'all.
We
I'll
need
do
you
a
to
lot.
make the intro music for the show now.
I will. Don't play with me.
Actually, hey, do you have a you got like a link where people can hear your music?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we'll put it in the show notes. That way people can follow up with you and hear what you're making.
Okay. Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome, buddy. All right,
Thanks, man.
Thank you so
Appreciate you.
much. We'll talk to you
Yep.
then.
Lionel on Uncarcerated.
Amazing.
All right.
It took a while, but we finally got there.
I know. It's
So
awesome.
good. Yeah.
I feel like I learned more about someone we work with and someone I care about.
That was
So-
great. Yeah.
So many like we're starting to see like so many through lines for our guests,
mhm.
you know, and especially with like some of the trauma that people have experienced and how it manifests when it, you know, like this is probably the 5th or 6th guest we've talked about with the prison dreams, you know.
I still get them all the
me
time.
too.
Yeah. I mean, years later, they still show up in like weird, like subtle ways too. Like either I'm back in there or like there's some like it's like the reality outside of the prison, but somehow there's some aspect of prison that shows up. It's this weird like merging of reality and like present in the past.
Yeah, I'm driving from place to place and it's from a job to another place, but it's all prison.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
weird. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like prison world or like
Right.
prison mini world. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Very strange. No, it was. I really enjoyed how he spoke about his experience and how it was very clear and concise. He didn't mince words. He was very direct. It was really good in a very refreshing way. It was awesome.
We've got a couple of great guests coming up. Go back, watch some of the old shows, like, rate, subscribe. Definitely hit that subscribe button and leave a comment so that we know what you thought about the show, what we can do better. If you have an experience with the criminal justice system at all and you'd like to be on the show or you want to have a conversation about it, you can obviously hit us up. Uncarceratedpod@gmail. That's uncarceratedpod@gmail. Follow us on Twitter @uncarcerated, but definitely share this show with as many people as you possibly can.
All right, thanks, Sean. We'll talk to you next time.